The coffee shop on Fifth Avenue had seen thousands of conversations, but none quite like the one that would unfold on that rainy Tuesday morning in October. Maya Chun sat alone at table 14, her psychology textbook spread across the wooden surface like a fortress protecting her from the world. She had no idea that in exactly 7 minutes, a stranger would walk through that door and challenge everything she believed about herself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. What started as an accidental collision would become the most unexpected love story, one that would prove that sometimes the people who feel most unworthy of love are exactly the ones who deserve it most. Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she highlighted another passage about cognitive behavioral therapy. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, studying to become a therapist, while her own mind was her worst enemy. Every morning, she looked in the mirror and saw someone broken. Someone who had convinced herself that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. The rain drummed against the window of Cornerstone Cafe, creating a rhythmic backdrop to the Tuesday morning rush. Maya preferred this corner table because it kept her back to the wall and gave her a clear view of everyone coming and going. Trust didn't come easily when you'd spent 23 years believing you weren't worth anyone's time. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate Jessica. Coming home late tonight. Hot date with that guy from accounting. You should really put yourself out there, Maya. You're amazing and you don't even know it. Maya stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Have fun, I'll be here with my books." She deleted the part where she almost added "where I belong," because even Jessica, with all her good intentions, wouldn't understand. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya glanced up reflexively. A tall man with dark hair and tired eyes stood in the entrance, shaking raindrops from his jacket. He looked around the crowded cafe with the same cautious assessment. Maya recognized in herself someone used to measuring exits and calculating risks. Logan Mitchell had been having the kind of morning that made him question every decision he'd made in the past 5 years. His business meeting had fallen through, his car wouldn't start, and his ex-girlfriend had somehow managed to make him feel guilty about things that happened 3 months ago via a series of increasingly dramatic text messages. He ducked into the first cafe he could find, desperate for caffeine and 5 minutes of peace. The place was packed with the usual mix of students, business people, and locals trying to escape the October chill. Logan's eyes swept the room, looking for an empty table, when he noticed her, a young woman with long black hair pulled back in a messy bun, surrounded by textbooks and completely absorbed in her studying. There was something about the way she sat, shoulders slightly hunched as if she was trying to make herself smaller, that made him pause. Maya sensed someone watching her and looked up to find a stranger's gaze fixed on her table. For a split second, their eyes met, and she felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a flutter of curiosity mixed with panic. She quickly looked back down at her textbook, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Logan realized he'd been staring and felt like an idiot. He made his way to the counter, ordered a black coffee and a blueberry muffin, then found himself glancing back at the woman with the textbooks. There was something familiar about the way she held herself, like someone carrying invisible weight. "Excuse me," he found himself saying as he approached her table, coffee in hand. "I'm sorry to bother you, but would you mind if I shared your table? Everywhere else is taken, and I promise I'll be quiet." Maya looked up, startled. Up close, she could see that his eyes were green with flecks of gold, and there were lines around them that suggested he smiled often, though he wasn't smiling now. He looked nervous, which somehow made her feel slightly less anxious. Sure. I guess," she stammered, quickly gathering her books to make room. "Thanks, I'm Logan, by the way." He slid into the chair across from her, careful not to disturb her organized chaos of notebooks and highlighters. "Maya," she replied softly, then immediately regretted giving her real name. She usually made up names when strangers asked, a habit left over from years of not wanting to be remembered. Logan noticed the psychology textbooks and felt a spark of recognition. Studying psych? Graduate program at Columbia. Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. You? Used to be pre-med before I switched to business. Burned out sophomore year. Logan took a sip of his coffee and made a face. This tastes like it was brewed yesterday. Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. The coffee here is terrible, but it's quiet and they don't mind if you stay for hours. So you're a regular? Something like that. Maya closed her textbook, realizing she hadn't absorbed a single word in the past 10 minutes. What kind of business? Logan ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking older than his 28 years. I fix things that are broken. Companies mostly. Go in, figure out what's not working, make recommendations. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Do you like it? The question caught Logan off guard. Most people asked if it paid well or if he traveled much, but no one ever asked if he actually enjoyed what he did. I'm good at it, he said finally. That's not the same thing, is it? Maya understood that answer better than she cared to admit. I'm studying to be a therapist, and half the time I think I'm the last person who should be giving anyone advice about their life. Maybe that makes you better at it. Someone who's figured everything out might not understand what it's like to struggle. There was something in his voice that made Maya look at him more carefully. Logan was staring into his coffee cup like it held answers to questions he hadn't figured out how to ask yet. What made you switch from pre-med? She found herself asking. Logan was quiet for so long that Maya thought he hadn't heard her. When he finally looked up, there was a rawness in his expression that made her chest tight. My dad died my sophomore year. Heart attack at 52. I spent 2 years watching him waste away in hospitals, and I realized I couldn't handle being responsible for other people's lives when I couldn't even keep the most important person in my world alive. Maya felt something crack open inside her chest. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Logan's smile was practiced, the kind you perfect when you're tired of people's sympathy. What about you? What made you choose psychology? The honest answer was that Maya had spent most of her life trying to figure out what was wrong with her, why she felt so fundamentally flawed that even her own parents had found her too difficult to love. But she couldn't say that to a stranger. In a coffee shop. I like helping people, she said instead, which wasn't entirely a lie. Logan studied her face, and Maya had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her careful deflection. That's the right answer, isn't it? The one you give in interviews and to family members who ask. Maya's breath caught. What do you mean? I mean, I recognize someone who's really good at saying what people want to hear instead of what's actually true. The accusation should have made Maya angry, but instead, she felt exposed in a way that was both terrifying and oddly relieving. When was the last time someone had called her out instead of just accepting her surface-level responses? You don't know me, she said quietly. No, I don't. But I know what it looks like when someone's carrying around guilt that isn't theirs to carry. Maya's hands clenched around her coffee cup. You're making a lot of assumptions about a stranger. Maybe. Or maybe I recognize it because I do the same thing. The cafe continued to buzz with conversation around them, but Maya felt like they were sitting in a bubble of unexpected honesty. She studied Logan's face, looking for signs that this was some kind of game or manipulation, but all she saw was someone who looked as tired of pretending as she felt. What kind of guilt? She asked, her voice barely audible. Logan leaned back in his chair, seemingly weighing whether to answer honestly or retreat into safer territory. The kind where you convince yourself that bad things happen to people around you because of something you did or didn't do. The kind where you start believing that the best way to protect people is to keep them at a distance. Maya's throat felt tight. That sounds lonely. It is, but it's also safer for everyone. The rain had picked up outside, turning the windows into watercolor paintings of blurred shapes and muted colors. Maya watched people hurry past with umbrellas and newspapers held over their heads, all of them rushing toward something or someone that mattered enough to brave the storm. I used to think my parents gave me up because there was something inherently wrong with me, she heard herself saying. The words came out before she could stop them, surprising her with their clarity. Logan went very still. Used to think? Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now I know there was something inherently wrong with me. The difference is I've stopped trying to figure out how to fix it. How old were you? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 7. I'd been in foster care since I was 3, but they were going to adopt me. Had the papers ready and everything. Maya traced patterns on the wooden table with her finger. Then they decided they wanted to try for a biological child instead. Didn't want the complications that come with a damaged kid. Logan felt anger rise in his chest, not at Maya, but at the adults who had failed her so completely. That says everything about them and nothing about you, does it? Because I've been in therapy on and off for 15 years, and I still wake up every morning wondering what's so wrong with me that even my own parents couldn't love me enough to keep me. The vulnerability in her voice made Logan want to reach across the table and take her hand, but he sensed that unexpected gestures of comfort might send her running. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, making sure she could see his face when he spoke. My dad used to tell me that the world has 2 kinds of people, those who build walls and those who build bridges. He said the trick was figuring out which one you wanted to be. Logan paused, choosing his words carefully. I think maybe some of us build walls because we're afraid of what happens when people get close enough to see who we really are. Maya looked up at him, and for the first time since he'd sat down, she didn't immediately look away. And what happens when they do see who you really are? I don't know. I've gotten pretty good at making sure it never gets that far. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their respective admissions settling between them like a bridge neither had expected to build. Can I ask you something? Maya said finally. Sure. Why are you telling me this? You don't know me. I could be anyone. Logan considered the question seriously. Because sometimes it's easier to be honest with a stranger than with people who think they know you, and because he hesitated, then pushed forward. Because you look like someone who understands what it's like to carry things that are too heavy to carry alone. Maya felt tears prick at the edges of her eyes, but for once, they didn't feel like weakness. They felt like recognition. I should probably get going, she said, though she made no move to pack up her books. Should you? Or do you want to? The question hung in the air between them. Maya realized that for the first time in months, she didn't want to run away from a conversation. She wanted to stay in this coffee shop with this strange, honest man who seemed to understand the particular brand of loneliness she'd been carrying around like a secret. I want to stay, she admitted. But wanting things has never worked out. Well, for me. Logan smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Lucky for you, I'm probably not good for you anyway. We can both stay and be equally bad decisions together. Despite everything, her walls, her fears, her carefully constructed solitude, Maya found herself smiling back. That might be the most honest pickup line I've ever heard. Was that what that was? I'm out of practice. Good. I don't trust people who are too smooth with their words. Well, then you're in luck, because I'm about as smooth as sandpaper when it comes to talking to people I actually want to talk to. Maya felt something shift inside her chest, like a door she'd sealed shut was creaking open just a fraction. Is that what this is? Someone you actually want to talk to? Logan met her eyes directly. Yeah, I think it is. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside Cornerstone Cafe, two people who had convinced themselves they were better off alone began the slow, tentative process of discovering that maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong all along. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy Tuesday at Cornerstone Cafe, and Maya found herself doing something she hadn't done in years, looking forward to something. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:30, she and Logan had fallen into an unspoken routine of sharing table 14. Though neither of them had explicitly acknowledged what they were doing, Maya told herself it was just convenient. Logan told himself he was just being friendly. They were both lying. "You're distracted today," Logan observed, watching Maya stare at the same page of her developmental psychology textbook for the third time without turning it. "Finals are coming up," Maya replied, which was true but not the reason she couldn't concentrate. The real reason was sitting across from her, unconsciously tapping his pen against his coffee cup while reading emails on his laptop. Over the past few weeks, she'd learned small things about Logan Mitchell. He took his coffee black because adding cream felt like admitting weakness, his father's influence, though he didn't realize it. He had a scar on his left hand from when he'd tried to fix his bike at age 12 and had learned that some things require professional help. He laughed at his own jokes before anyone else had a chance to, as if he needed to give people permission to find him funny. "What's the most interesting thing you've learned in your program?" Logan asked, closing his laptop and giving her his full attention. Something Maya had noticed he did that other people rarely experienced. Maya considered the question carefully. In her abnormal psychology class, she'd been studying attachment theory, and it had felt like reading her own psychological autopsy. But saying that out loud felt too revealing. Probably that most people's coping mechanisms make perfect sense when you understand what they're coping with, she said instead. "Give me an example." Maya hesitated. They'd shared coffee and conversation for 3 weeks, but they'd both been careful to keep things surface level since that first unexpectedly honest encounter. Pushing deeper felt dangerous. Well, someone might seem antisocial or cold, but maybe. They learned early that getting attached to people leads to disappointment. So they protect themselves by not letting anyone get close enough to hurt them. Logan was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee even though he'd already finished it. "And what would you tell someone like that, hypothetically?" "I'd probably ask them if the protection is worth the isolation. If they're so busy guarding against potential pain that they're guaranteeing actual loneliness." "That's a good question. It's easier to ask than to answer." Logan looked up sharply. "Speaking from experience?" Maya felt heat creep up her neck. She'd revealed more than she'd intended again. There was something about Logan that made her forget to maintain her usual careful boundaries. "Maybe," she admitted. "What about you? What's the most interesting thing about fixing broken companies?" "Most of them aren't actually broken. They're just run by people who are afraid to make necessary changes because change feels like admitting failure." "Sounds familiar." "Yeah, it does." Logan leaned back in his chair, studying Maya's face. "Can I tell you something?" Maya's pulse quickened, but she nodded. "I've been coming here for 3 weeks, and I haven't figured out a single problem with any of my clients. But I've been more productive in these 2 hours twice a week than I am the rest of the time combined." "Why do you think that is?" Logan met her eyes directly. "Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not thinking about all the ways I might mess something up. I'm just ... here." Maya felt that dangerous flutter in her chest again, the one that made her want to lean closer instead of pulling away. "Logan ... I know. I know this is complicated, and I know we both have reasons to be careful. But I can't pretend I'm here for the terrible coffee anymore." Maya's breath caught. She'd known this moment was coming, had been both dreading and hoping for it. "I can't be what you want me to be." "What do you think I want you to be?" "Fixed, whole, someone who doesn't come with a manual full of warnings and disclaimers." Logan was quiet for so long that Maya started to gather her books, convinced she'd finally pushed him away. Then he spoke, his voice so soft she had to strain to hear him over the cafe's ambient noise. What if I told you that I don't want you to be fixed? What if I told you that someone who's learned to survive being broken might be exactly what someone like me needs? Maya's hands stilled on her textbooks. Someone like you? Someone who spent so much time learning how to help other people that he forgot how to help himself. Someone who's gotten so good at analyzing what's wrong with everything else that he can't see what might be right with his own life. Maya looked up at him, and for the first time in 3 weeks, she didn't immediately look away when their eyes met. That sounds lonely too. It is. But it's different when you're lonely with someone else who understands. The words hung between them like a bridge Maya wasn't sure she was brave enough to cross. Everything in her experience told her to run. To protect herself before Logan inevitably realized what her foster parents had realized, that she was too much work, too much damage, too much risk. But looking at him now, she saw something that stopped her from fleeing. Logan wasn't looking at her like she was a project to be fixed or a mystery to be solved. He was looking at her like she was exactly who she was supposed to be, brokenness and all. I should probably mention that I have trust issues, Maya said. Finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I should probably mention that I have commitment issues. I push people away when they get too close. I convince myself I'm protecting people by keeping them at a distance. Maya almost smiled. We sound like a disaster waiting to happen. The best kind of disaster, maybe. Logan, I'm serious. I don't know how to do this. I've never... She gestured vaguely between them, struggling for words. Never what? Never wanted someone to stay badly enough to risk them leaving. Logan felt something shift in his chest, like a wall he'd built so carefully that he'd forgotten it. Had suddenly developed a crack. Maya, can I ask you something, and will you answer me honestly? She nodded, though her hands were trembling. Slightly. Right now, at this moment, if you could choose between staying safe and taking a chance on something that might be really good, but could also hurt you, what would you choose? Maya stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Everything rational in her mind was screaming at her to choose safety, to stick with what she knew, to protect herself the way she'd learned to protect herself since. She was 7 years old, but for the first time in her adult life, the voice in her head that always chose self-preservation was being drowned out by something else, a tiny, stubborn hope that maybe this time could be different. I would choose the chance, she whispered. Logan's smile was soft and genuine, reaching all the way to his eyes. Even if it means risking getting hurt, even then. Good, because I was hoping you'd say that. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. But they weren't the familiar tears of fear or sadness. They felt relief, like finally exhaling after holding her breath for 16 years. So what happens now? She asked. I don't know. I've never gotten this far before. Despite her nervousness, Maya laughed a real laugh that surprised her with its lightness. You mean you don't have a plan? What kind of business consultant are you? The kind who's much better at fixing other people's problems than his own. Well, lucky for you, I'm studying to be a therapist, so I'm supposed to be good at helping people figure things out. Are you offering to be my therapist? Maya shook her head, still smiling. Definitely not. That would be a conflict of interest. Why? What kind of interest would it be conflicting with? The question was light, teasing, but Maya heard the genuine curiosity underneath it. Logan was giving her the chance to define what this was becoming, to set the pace and the boundaries. The kind where I might be interested in more than just your psychological well-being, she admitted, feeling braver than she'd felt in years. Logan leaned across the table, close enough that Maya could see the golden flecks in his green eyes. Maya-chan, are you asking me out? I think I might be. Is that okay? That depends. Are you planning to psychoanalyze everything I say and do? Only if you're planning to write a business plan for our relationship. Deal. They shook hands across the table, both of them laughing at the absurdity of formalizing what felt like the most natural thing either of them had experienced in years. But as their hands lingered together longer than a handshake required, Maya felt something she'd never felt before, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she was worth staying for. "So," Logan said, still holding her hand, "what does someone do on a first date when they've already had 3 weeks of coffee dates?" "Well, we could go somewhere with better coffee." Revolutionary thinking. Where did you have in mind? Maya bit her lip, considering. The truth was, she'd spent so much time avoiding situations where she might have to be vulnerable that she had no idea what people did on actual dates. But Logan was looking at her with such patient expectation that she felt brave enough to suggest something terrifying. "There's this bookstore in Greenwich Village that has a cafe in the back. They do poetry readings on Thursday nights. It's probably terrible and pretentious, but I've always wanted to go, and I've never had anyone to go with." Logan squeezed her hand gently. "Thursday night it is. Fair warning, though, I don't know anything about poetry." "Fair warning right back, I might be too nervous to actually listen to any of it." "Perfect. We can be confused and nervous together." Maya looked down at their joined hands, marveling at how something so simple could feel so monumental. "Logan? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not running when I told you I was broken." Logan was quiet for a moment, then lifted their joined hands and pressed a gentle kiss to Maya's knuckles. "Thank you for not running when I told you I was scared." As they sat there in the noisy cafe, hands clasped across a table covered in psychology textbooks and empty coffee cups, neither Maya nor Logan could have predicted that this moment would become the foundation of something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, worthiness, and the possibility of healing together instead of alone. But sometimes the most important moments don't announce themselves with fanfare. Sometimes they arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary Tuesday mornings, and change everything simply by offering two broken people the radical possibility that maybe, together, they could be whole. Thursday evening found Maya standing outside the dusty tome bookstore in Greenwich Village, checking her phone for the 4th time in 2 minutes. Logan wasn't late, she was early, a nervous habit that had followed her since childhood. Being early meant control, meant preparation, meant she could leave before anyone had the chance to disappoint her. The October air carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, and the streets hummed with the kind of energy that made New York feel alive after dark. Maya pulled her burgundy cardigan tighter around her shoulders and wondered if suggesting a poetry reading had been a mistake. What if Logan thought it was pretentious? What if she froze up and couldn't speak to him outside the familiar safety of Cornerstone Cafe? "You look like you're planning an escape route." Maya spun around to find Logan approaching with 2 cups of coffee from the vendor on the corner. He was wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater that brought out his eyes, and Maya felt her stomach do something that definitely wasn't hunger. "I was actually calculating how many subway stops it would take me to get home if this turns out to be a disaster," she admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Very practical. What's your over-under on disaster probability?" 60-40 in favor of disaster." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Those aren't great odds. I'm an optimist." "If that's optimism, I'm terrified to see your pessimism." Maya laughed despite her nerves. "Your confidence in this situation is either admirable or delusional." "Definitely delusional." "I spent 20 minutes in my apartment trying to decide if wearing cologne would be trying too hard or not wearing it would be trying too little. What did you decide?" "I went with trying too little. Seemed safer." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of the same anxiety she was feeling. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Logan said simply. "But the good kind of terrified. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing you might actually want to jump." The honesty in his voice made Maya's chest tight in the best possible way. "I don't think I've ever experienced the good kind of terrified before. How does it feel?" Maya considered the question as they walked toward the bookstore's entrance. How did it feel to want something badly enough to risk it? How did it feel to stand at the edge of her carefully constructed solitude and consider stepping into the unknown? Like I'm about to do something that could either be the best decision I've ever made or completely destroy me, she said finally. Those aren't mutually exclusive, you know. What do you mean? Logan held the door open for her, and they stepped into the warm, book-scented interior. Maybe the things that have the power to destroy us are the only things that have the power to save us. The bookstore was exactly what Maya had imagined: floor-to-ceiling shelves, mismatched armchairs, and the kind of comfortable chaos that suggested the owners cared more about creating a refuge than maximizing profit. A small crowd had gathered near the back, where a makeshift stage had been set up with a microphone and a single stool. Maya, Logan. They turned to see a woman with silver-streaked hair and paint-stained fingers approaching them. I'm Elena, the owner. First time at one of our readings? Yes, Maya replied, suddenly feeling like she was crashing an exclusive party. Wonderful. Tonight's theme is truth and consequences. Should be interesting. Fair warning, some of our regulars get pretty intense. As if summoned by her words, a man in his 40s stepped up to the microphone and began reading a poem about his divorce that was so raw and personal that Maya felt like she was eavesdropping on a therapy session. The audience listened with the kind of focused attention that people usually reserve for emergencies. Maya and Logan found 2 empty chairs near the back, and Maya was grateful for the dim lighting that hid her burning cheeks. The poet's words seemed to hang in the air like confessions, and she wondered what had possessed her to suggest an activity that involved this level of emotional exposure. This is intense, Logan whispered, leaning close enough that Maya could smell his shampoo, something clean and uncomplicated that made her want to turn her head and breathe him in. We could leave, Maya whispered back, though she made no move to stand. Do you want to? Maya looked around the room at the faces of strangers who were listening to another stranger's pain with complete attention and acceptance. There was something beautiful about it, this gathering of people who had decided that truth was worth the discomfort of hearing it. No, she said, surprising herself. I want to stay. Logan smiled and settled back in his chair, and Maya felt some of her tension ease. This was okay. They were okay. The next poet was a college student who read about falling in love for the first time, and the one after that was an elderly woman who spoke about losing her husband after 53 years of marriage. Each poem felt like a small act of courage, a decision to transform private experience into shared understanding. Next up, we have Maya, Elena announced, and Maya's blood turned to ice. What? Maya whispered, gripping Logan's arm. I think you signed up when we came in, Logan said. Looking as confused as she felt, Maya looked toward the front of the room where Elena was gesturing for her to come forward, and she realized with horror that she must have accidentally written her name on the sign-up sheet when Elena had handed her the clipboard at the door. I can't, Maya said, panic rising in her throat. I don't have anything prepared. I can't get up there. Logan turned in his chair to face her fully. Maya, look at me. She met his eyes, trying to breathe normally. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, he said quietly. But if you want to, if there's any part of you that wants to, try. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Maya stared at him, her heart pounding. The rational part of her mind was screaming that this was exactly the kind of situation she avoided, being put on the spot, being vulnerable in front of strangers, risking judgment and rejection. But there was another voice in her head, quieter, but growing stronger. That sounded suspiciously like Logan's. Maybe the things that have the power to destroy us are the only things that have the power to save us. If I do this and it's terrible, will you still want to have coffee with me next Tuesday? She asked. Maya, if you do this and it's terrible, I'll want to have coffee with you every Tuesday for the rest of my life. The words hit Maya like a physical force. Not because Logan was declaring his undying love, they both knew it was too early for that, but because he was promising constancy in the face of her imperfection. He was saying that her worst wouldn't scare him away. Maya stood up before she could change her mind. Walking to the front of the room felt like swimming upstream through honey, but somehow she made it to the microphone. She looked out at the expectant faces and felt her mouth go dry. Elena gave her an encouraging nod from the side of the stage. "Hi," Maya said, her voice barely audible. "I'm Maya, and I didn't plan to do this tonight. I don't have anything prepared, so this is probably going to be a disaster." A few people chuckled, and Maya felt some of her terror ease. "I guess. I've been thinking about truth and consequences lately. About how sometimes the truth is that you're scared of everything, and the consequence is that you miss out on everything worth being scared of." Maya looked out into the audience and found Logan's face. He was watching her with complete attention, no judgment or expectation, just presence. "I used to think that being alone was safer than risking disappointment, and maybe it is safer. But being safe isn't the same thing as being alive." Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I've spent so many years protecting myself from potential hurt that I forgot to protect myself from guaranteed loneliness." She paused, surprised by her own words. She hadn't planned to say any of this, but standing here in front of strangers, she felt something she'd never experienced before, the relief of telling the truth without apology. "So I guess tonight is about consequences. The consequence of deciding that maybe, just maybe, I'm worth the risk of being hurt. The consequence of believing that someone might stay even if they see who I really am." Maya's voice caught on the last words, but she pushed through. "The consequence of admitting that I don't deserve love, but wanting to find out if maybe that doesn't matter as much as I thought it did." The room was completely silent when Maya finished, and for a moment, she thought she'd made a terrible mistake. Then Logan started clapping, and the rest of the audience joined in, and Maya felt something inside her chest expand like a balloon filling with helium. She made her way back to her seat on shaking legs, and Logan stood up to meet her halfway, pulling her into a hug that lasted just long enough for Maya to believe it was real. "That was incredible," he whispered against her ear. "That was terrifying. Same thing." They sat back down as the next poet took the stage, but Maya barely heard the words. She was too busy processing what had just happened, not just the fact that she'd gotten up in front of strangers and shared something personal, but the way it had felt to tell the truth about her fears and have Logan look at her like she'd done something brave instead of broken. "Can I tell you something?" Logan said quietly as they walked out of the bookstore an hour later. "Sure. When you said you don't deserve love, my first thought wasn't that you were wrong. My first thought was that neither do I, and maybe that's exactly why we make sense together." Maya stopped walking. "What do you mean?" Logan turned to face her under a streetlight, and Maya could see the vulnerability in his expression. "I mean, maybe we don't need to deserve love. Maybe we just need to decide that we want it badly enough to risk not getting it right." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, but for the first time in years they didn't feel like defeat. "Logan? Yeah? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be in a relationship or trust someone or any of it, but I want to learn with you." Logan reached for her hands, holding them gently between his own. "Maya-chan, will you teach me how to stop being scared long enough to let someone love me? Only if you'll teach me how to believe I'm worth loving." "Deal." They sealed their agreement. With their first kiss, standing on a sidewalk in Greenwich Village with the sounds of the city humming around them. It wasn't perfect, their noses bumped and Maya's hands were shaking, but it was real in a way that made all of Maya's careful plans for self-protection seem suddenly unnecessary. When they broke apart, Logan rested his forehead against hers. "So what happens now?" Maya smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. Now we figure out what it looks like when two people who don't think they deserve love decide to love each other anyway. That sounds like the best kind of disaster, the very best kind. As they walked toward the subway station, hands intertwined, Maya realized that for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't planning her exit strategy. She was planning her staying strategy, and it felt like the most revolutionary thing she'd ever done. 2 months into whatever they were calling their relationship, Maya discovered that happiness was more terrifying than loneliness had ever been. She stood in the produce section of Whole Foods on a Sunday morning, holding her phone and staring at a text from Logan. Emergency client meeting moved to today. Rain check on brunch? I'll make it up to you, promise. The old Maya would have felt relief. A canceled plan meant safety, meant she didn't have to navigate the complex choreography of being someone's girlfriend. But this Maya, the one who had somehow learned to sleep without checking the locks twice and had started keeping Logan's favorite coffee in her apartment, felt something she barely recognized as disappointment. She was typing back, "No problem," when her phone rang. "I'm sorry," Logan's voice came through slightly breathless. "I know we talked about doing normal relationship things like Sunday brunch, and here I am canceling at the last minute like an ass." "It's okay, Logan. Work is important. You're important." The words hit Maya in the chest with unexpected force. She gripped her phone tighter, aware that she was standing in the middle of a grocery store, having what felt like a life-altering conversation, next to a display of organic apples. "Maya, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here. It's just ... She paused, struggling to articulate the panic rising in her throat. "How do you know that? How do you know I'm important?" Logan was quiet for a moment, and Maya could hear the sounds of the city behind him, car horns and construction, and the general chaos of Manhattan on a Sunday morning. "Because for the first time in my adult life, I'm rearranging my schedule instead of my feelings," he said finally. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, right there between the bananas and the bell peppers. "I don't understand. I mean, I've spent years making my emotions fit around my obligations. Does the client need something? I cancel plans without thinking twice, because it's easier than admitting I have a life outside of work. But with you, Maya, I spent 10 minutes trying to figure out how to move mountains to keep our brunch date before I accepted that it was impossible. Logan ... I'm falling in love with you," he said, the words coming out in a rush. "I know it's too soon to say that, and I know we agreed to take things slow, but I needed you to know why I'm angry at myself for canceling today. It's not because I'm a good boyfriend. I have no idea how to be a good boyfriend. It's because you matter to me in a way that scares the hell out of me." Maya sank down onto a nearby bench, her legs suddenly unreliable. A woman pushing a cart full of organic vegetables gave her a concerned look, but Maya couldn't bring herself to care about causing a scene. "You can't say things like that," Maya whispered. "Why not?" "Because then I have to decide whether to believe you, and I don't know how to do that." Logan's voice grew softer. "What if you don't have to decide right now? What if you just let me keep showing you until it gets easier to believe?" Maya closed her eyes, feeling the familiar war between hope and terror playing out in her chest. "What if you change your mind? What if you wake up one day and realize that loving someone who's this broken is too much work?" "Maya, can I tell you something that might sound crazy?" She nodded, then realized he couldn't see her. "Yes, I don't want to fix you. I don't want to save you or heal you or make you into someone different. I want to love you exactly as complicated and scared and brilliant as you are right now." Maya felt something crack open inside her, like ice breaking apart in spring. "That doesn't make sense." "Why not?" "Because I'm not easy to love, Logan. I have nightmares about abandonment. I panic when people change plans because it feels like they're practicing leaving me. I've been in therapy for 15 years, and I still don't know how to trust that someone won't get tired of me. And The question caught Maya off guard. And what? And what makes you think any of that? Changes how I feel about you. Maya opened her eyes, staring at the bustling grocery store around her. Families were buying ingredients for Sunday dinners. Couples were debating between organic and conventional produce. And life was continuing all its normal, mundane beauty, while Maya felt like her entire world was shifting. I have to go, she said suddenly. Maya, wait. But she had already hung up. Maya spent the rest of Sunday in her apartment, ignoring Logan's calls and texts while she tried to process what had happened. He'd said he was falling in love with her. Not with some idealized version of who she might become, but with her anxiety and trust issues and all. It was everything she'd wanted to hear and everything that terrified her most. By Monday morning, she had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages ranging from "please call me back" to "I'm sorry if I said too much" to "Maya, please just let me know you're okay." She was sitting in advanced family therapy, pretending to take notes while Professor Williams discussed attachment styles and romantic relationships, when her phone buzzed with one more message. "I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need." Maya stared at the words until they blurred, and for the first time since Logan had uttered those impossible words in the grocery store, she felt like she could breathe. After class, she found herself walking to Cornerstone Cafe without consciously deciding to go there. It was Tuesday, which meant Logan would be there at 10:30, assuming he still wanted to maintain their routine. After she'd hung up on him and disappeared for 24 hours, he was sitting at their usual table, laptop open but ignored, staring out the window with the kind of expression Maya recognized from her own mirror, someone trying to prepare for disappointment. "Hi," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Logan looked up, and the relief on his face was so immediate and complete that Maya felt her chest tighten. "Hi," he said back, closing his laptop. "How are you?" Terrified. "Of me?" Maya shook her head. "Of myself. Of how much I want to believe you." Logan leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask what you're afraid will happen if you do believe me?" Maya had spent all of Sunday night thinking about that exact question. "I'm afraid that if I let myself believe you love me, and then you leave, it won't just hurt. It will confirm every terrible thing I've ever believed about myself. And if you don't let yourself believe me, then I get to be right about being unlovable, but I also get to be alone forever." Logan was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in slow circles. "Those both sound pretty awful." "Yeah, they do." "What if there was a third option?" Maya looked up. "What kind of third option?" "What if you let yourself believe me, and instead of waiting for me to leave, you trust that I'm going to keep choosing to stay?" "That sounds impossible." "Why?" Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because people don't just choose to stay, Logan. When things get hard or inconvenient or complicated, people leave. It's what they do." "Some people do," Logan agreed. "But not all people, and not me." "How? Can you be so sure?" Logan reached across the table and took her hands, the gesture so familiar now that Maya's fingers automatically intertwined with his. "Because I've spent my entire adult life running from anything that mattered enough to hurt me, and I'm tired of running." Maya felt tears threaten again. "What if I'm not worth it? What if you invest all this time and energy in loving me, and I'm still too broken to love you back the way you deserve?" "Maya, look at me." She met his eyes reluctantly. "You're already loving me back. You've been loving me back since that first day when you let me sit at your table instead of telling me to find somewhere else. You love me back every time you answer my calls, even though phones make you anxious. You love me back when you trust me enough to tell me about your nightmares. That doesn't feel like enough. It's everything." Maya stared at him, this man who somehow saw her more clearly than she saw herself. "I don't know how to do this, Logan. I don't know how to be someone's girlfriend or trust that this is real or any of it." "Good news," Logan said, squeezing her hands gently. I don't know how to do it either. We can figure it out together. What if we mess it up? Then we'll mess it up together too. Maya felt something shift in her chest, like a door she'd been holding closed finally swinging open. Logan? Yeah? I think I'm falling in love with you too. And it's the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. Logan's smile was soft and bright and full of something Maya was finally brave enough to recognize as love. Good. The best things usually are. So what happens now? Now we take it one day at a time. One conversation at a time. One choice to stay at a time. Maya nodded, feeling like she was standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. Can I ask you something? Anything. When you said you were falling in love with me, did you mean it? Or were you just trying to make me feel better about the canceled brunch? Logan laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. Maya-chun, I have been falling in love with you since you first looked up from your psychology textbooks and let a stranger share your table. The canceled brunch just gave me an excuse to finally say it out loud. Oh, Maya said softly. Okay. Then. Okay then. Okay then, I love you too. Even though it scares me. Especially because it scares me. Logan lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, the gesture tender and reverent. For the record, it scares me too. Good, Maya said, echoing his words from before. The best things usually do. As they sat there in their terrible coffee cafe, hands intertwined across a table that had become the foundation of something neither of them had believed possible, Maya realized that love wasn't about deserving, or earning or being worthy enough. Love was about choosing each other, day after day, fear and all that, and for the first time in her life, Maya was ready to be chosen. Maya's hands were shaking as she stared at the email on her laptop screen. She read it 3 times before the words fully registered, each reading making her heart pound harder. Dear Ms. Chun, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the doctoral fellowship program at Stanford University. This prestigious opportunity includes full funding for your PhD in clinical psychology, along with a research assistantship under Dr. Rebecca Martinez. The email continued, but Maya had stopped reading. Stanford, 3,000 miles away from New York, 3,000 miles away from Logan. She closed the laptop and tried to breathe normally, but the apartment suddenly felt too small, too warm, too everything. 6 months ago, this email would have been the answer to every prayer she'd never dared to pray. A chance to escape, to start over somewhere new where no one knew her history or her damage. Now it felt like the universe was testing her commitment to staying. Maya was still sitting frozen on her couch when Logan knocked on her door 2 hours later. They'd made plans to cook dinner together, another one of those normal couple activities that Maya was slowly learning to navigate. Hey, he said, kissing her forehead as she let him in. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. Maya watched Logan set down a grocery bag filled with ingredients for the pasta dish they'd planned to make. His movements were easy and familiar in her space now, and the domesticity of it made her chest ache. What's wrong? Logan asked, immediately picking up on her mood. 6 months of dating had made him fluent in Maya's subtle expressions of distress. Maya handed him her laptop without a word. She watched his face as he read the email, saw the exact moment when understanding hit him. His expression went carefully neutral in the way it did when he was trying not to influence her reaction to something. Stanford, he said finally, closing the laptop. Maya, this is incredible. This is exactly what you wanted. Is it? Logan studied her face. Isn't it? Maya sank back onto the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. I applied 8 months ago. Before I met you. Before any of this. She gestured vaguely between them. I applied because I wanted to disappear, to go somewhere no one knew me, to start over completely. And now? Now I don't want to disappear anymore. Logan sat down next to her, careful to leave space between them. Maya had learned to recognize this as one of his protective instincts, giving her room to feel whatever she needed to feel, without the pressure of physical comfort. "Tell me what you're thinking," he said quietly. Maya was quiet for a long time, trying to untangle the mess of emotions in her chest. "I'm thinking that 8 months ago, getting this acceptance letter would have felt like winning the lottery. I'm thinking that Stanford's clinical psychology program is ranked 3rd in the country, and Dr. Martinez is one of the leading researchers in trauma therapy. But I'm also thinking that I've spent my entire life running away from things that matter, and accepting this fellowship feels like the biggest run of all." Logan was silent, and Maya could practically hear him choosing his words carefully. "Maya, can I ask you something without you taking it the wrong way?" She nodded. "Are you not going because you're afraid of leaving me? Or are you afraid of me? Leaving you if you go?" The question hit Maya like a slap, precise and unavoidable. She stared at Logan, whose expression remained gentle despite the brutal accuracy of his observation. "Both," she whispered. "Maybe, I don't know. If I promised you that distance wouldn't change how I feel about you, would that make a difference?" Maya felt tears threaten. "You can't promise that. Why not?" "Because long-distance relationships are hard, Logan. Because you'll meet someone who doesn't come with my baggage. Because 3,000 miles is a long way to maintain feelings for someone who still wakes up, sometimes convinced that you're going to realize you made a mistake." Logan moved closer then, reaching for her hands. "Maya, look at me." She met his eyes reluctantly. "I love you. Not despite your baggage, not until someone better comes along, not conditionally. I love you, period. And if you want to go to Stanford, because it's the best program for your career, then I want you to go to Stanford. Just like that, just like that." Maya stared at him, searching his face for signs of hidden resentment or secret relief. "You're not even a little bit afraid of what happens to us?" Logan was quiet for a moment. "I'm terrified. Long-distance relationships are hard, and I have no idea how to do one. But I'm more afraid of you not going because of me and spending the rest of your life wondering what would have happened. What if we don't survive it? What if we do?" Maya felt something shift in her chest, like a puzzle. Piece finally clicking into place. "You really think we could make it work?" "I think we've already survived you running away when I told you I loved you, me having a panic attack when you met my sister, and that disaster of a Thanksgiving dinner at your advisor's house. I think if we can survive all that, we can probably survive some geography." Despite everything, Maya almost smiled at the memory of that Thanksgiving dinner. Logan had spilled wine on Professor Williams' white tablecloth. Maya had hidden in the bathroom for 20 minutes, and they both agreed afterward that it was the worst social event either of them had ever attended. "That was pretty terrible," she admitted. "Catastrophic, and we're still here." Maya took a shaky breath. "Logan, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Part of me wants to turn down Stanford, not because I'm afraid of long distance, but because I'm afraid of wanting something more than I want you. And that terrifies me, because I've never wanted anything as much as I want you." Logan's expression softened. "Maya, wanting your career doesn't mean you want me less. It means you're finally letting yourself want more than one thing at a time. I don't know how to do that, so we'll figure it out together. From 3,000 miles apart if we have to." Maya studied his face, looking for any sign that he was just saying what he thought she wanted to hear. But Logan's expression was open and honest in the way that had first drawn her to him. "You really mean that?" she said, not quite a question. "I really mean that." Maya was quiet for several minutes, processing what he'd said. "If I go, what happens to us? Do we visit each other? Do we set an end date? Do we just see what happens?" "I don't know," Logan admitted. "I've never tried to maintain a relationship across the country, but I know I want to try. Even if it's hard, especially if it's hard." Maya felt tears spill over then, but they weren't the familiar tears of fear or sadness. They were something else entirely: relief, maybe, or gratitude. Or the overwhelming realization that Logan was choosing her, even when choosing her meant letting her go. "I think I want to go," she whispered. "Good." Logan smiled, and it reached all the way to his eyes. "Good, you should want to go. It's an incredible opportunity, and you're going to be amazing." "I'm scared." "I know. I'm scared too." Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What if we're making a huge mistake? What if long distance kills what we have? What if it makes you stronger? "You're very optimistic for someone who's terrified," Logan laughed. "I'm learning that from you." "From me? I'm the least optimistic person I know." "Maya, you spent 23 years convinced you were unlovable, and then you let me love you anyway. If that's not optimism, I don't know what is." Maya felt something warm spread through her chest, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "When you put it like that. Plus," Logan added, "you'll be busy becoming Dr. Maya Chun, which has a nice ring to it." "Dr. Chun," Maya repeated, testing the words. "That does sound pretty good." "It sounds perfect." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Maya's head on Logan's shoulder, both of them processing what they'd just committed to. The pasta ingredients sat forgotten on the kitchen counter, but neither of them moved to start cooking. "Logan?" Maya said finally. "Yeah? Thank you. For what?" "For loving me enough to let me go." Logan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for trusting me enough to want to come back." Maya closed her eyes, feeling something she'd never experienced before: the simultaneous presence of love and independence, the knowledge that she could choose her future without losing the person who mattered most to her. "I haven't accepted yet," she said. "But you're going to?" Maya thought about Dr. Martinez's research, about the opportunity to work with trauma survivors, about the chance to build the career she'd always dreamed of. For the first time in her life, the future felt like something she was moving toward instead of something she was running from. "Yeah," she said. "I think I am. Then we better start planning some very romantic cross-country visits." Maya laughed, the sound light and free. "Very romantic and very expensive. Worth every penny." As they finally got up to start dinner, Maya realized that love wasn't about choosing between the person you wanted and the life you wanted. Sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, love meant having someone who wanted both for you too. And for the first time in her life, Maya felt very lucky indeed. The moving truck pulled away from Maya's apartment building on a humid August morning, taking with it 2 years' worth of carefully curated belongings and the life she'd built in New York. Maya stood on the sidewalk with a single suitcase and a backpack, watching her entire world disappear around the corner of East 84th Street. "You sure you don't want me to come to the airport?" Logan asked for the third time in 10 minutes. Maya turned to look at him, memorizing the way the morning light caught the gold flecks in his green eyes. In 3 hours, she'd be on a plane to San Francisco, and they'd officially begin the most terrifying experiment of her life. "We talked about this," she said, though her voice wasn't as steady as she'd hoped. "Airport goodbyes are terrible in movies for a reason. This isn't a movie, Maya. No, it's worse. In movies, you know the couple is going to end up together." In the end, Logan stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "We're going to end up together in the end. You can't know that. I can believe it. And I can choose it every day for as long as you'll let me." Maya felt her carefully constructed composure begin to crack. She'd been holding it together for 3 weeks, ever since she'd officially accepted Stanford's offer. She'd made lists and spreadsheets and detailed plans for how they'd navigate the next 4 years. She'd researched flight costs and time zones and video calling apps. She'd done everything except prepare for how it would feel to actually walk away from the first person who'd ever made her want to stay. "What if I can't do this?" she whispered. "The program?" "Maya, you're going to be incredible. Know this. Us. What if I'm not strong enough to love you from 3,000 miles away? Logan was quiet for a moment, studying her face with the careful attention she'd come to associate with his most honest moments. Do you remember what you told me about coping mechanisms? He asked finally. Maya nodded, confused by the change in direction. You said most people's coping mechanisms make perfect sense when you understand what they're coping with. Yeah, your coping mechanism has always been leaving before people can leave you. But Maya, you're not leaving me. You're going towards something that matters to you, and you're trusting me to be here when you get back. Maya felt tears spill over despite her best efforts to contain them. What if you're not here when I get back? Then you'll have spent 4 years becoming Dr. Maya Chun, and that will be worth it regardless of what happens to us. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. How can you say that? Because I love you enough to want you to have an extraordinary life, even if I'm not part of it. Maya stared at him, this man who had somehow learned to love her without trying to contain her. That's not fair. What's not fair? Saying things like that when I'm already barely holding it together. Logan smiled, though she could see the sadness behind it. Maya Chun, you are the strongest person I know. You survived foster care and abandonment and 23 years of believing you were unlovable. You can survive 4 years in California. What about you? Can you survive 4 years without me? Logan's smile faltered slightly. I guess we're both going to find out. Maya's taxi pulled up to the curb, and reality hit her like a wall. This was it. This was the moment she'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. I have to go, she said, though she made no move toward the car. I know. Logan? Yeah? I love you. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. I love you too, more than anything. They kissed goodbye on the sidewalk outside her old apartment building, and Maya tried to memorize everything. The taste of his coffee-flavored chapstick, the way his hands felt tangled in her hair, the sound of the city waking up around them. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. Don't change too much while I'm gone, Maya said, attempting humor through her tears. Don't become too successful and famous to remember the guy who used to buy you terrible coffee. Maya laughed despite everything. Never. The taxi driver cleared his throat impatiently, and Maya knew she was out of time. She grabbed her suitcase and got into the car, rolling down the window as they pulled away from the curb. 4 years. She called out to Logan, who was standing in the exact spot where she'd left him. 4 years. He called back. Maya watched him get smaller and smaller until the taxi turned the corner and he disappeared from view. Then she allowed herself to fall apart completely, crying for the next hour as Manhattan gave way to Queens and Queens gave way to JFK Airport. The flight to San Francisco was turbulent, which felt appropriate. Maya spent most of it staring out the window, watching the country spread out below her like a patchwork quilt. Somewhere over Kansas, she pulled out her phone and typed a text to Logan. I miss you already, and I haven't even landed yet. His response came immediately. I miss you too. But I'm also proud of you. Text me when you land. Maya smiled through fresh tears and put her phone away. Maybe this could work. Maybe love could survive geography and time zones and the 1,000 small daily separations that long distance relationships required. Stanford's campus was everything Maya had imagined and nothing like she'd expected. It was beautiful in an almost aggressive way, red-tiled roofs and palm trees, and sunshine that felt like a personal insult to her New York sensibilities. Her graduate housing was a small studio apartment in Escondido Village, furnished with the kind of furniture that screamed temporary, but would be home for the next 4 years. Maya unpacked her single suitcase slowly, trying to make the sterile space feel familiar. She'd shipped most of her belongings, but they wouldn't arrive for another week. For now she had her books, her laptop, her clothes, and a framed photo of her and Logan from the poetry reading where they'd first kissed. She set the photo on her desk and stared at it for a long time. Logan was looking at her in the picture instead of at the camera, and his expression was soft with something Maya was still learning to recognize as love. She'd kept that photo on her nightstand in New York, and seeing it in this new place made everything feel more real and more impossible at the same time. Her phone rang, just as she was debating whether to unpack her winter clothes or accept that she might not need them in California. "How's Stanford?" Logan's voice was warm and familiar, and Maya felt some of the tension in her shoulders. "Sunny, aggressively sunny." Maya curled up on her new bed, which was too firm and smelled like industrial detergent. "I think the weather here is personally offended by my preference for cloudy days. Give it time. Maybe you'll become one of those people who does yoga on the beach. That seems unlikely." "Never say never." "A year ago, you would have said it was unlikely that you'd move across the country for graduate school." Maya smiled despite her melancholy. "Point taken. How was your day?" "Weird. I kept expecting you to text me about something one of your professors said, and then I'd remember you're not in class yet. Classes start Monday. I have orientation tomorrow." "Nervous?" Maya considered the question. "Excited, mostly. Which is a new feeling for me when it comes to new situations." "I like excited Maya. She's very attractive." "Even from 3,000 miles away?" "Especially from 3,000 miles away. Distance makes the heart grow fonder and all that." Maya laughed. "That's such a dad saying. My dad used to say it about my mom when she'd go visit her sister in Boston. I never understood it until now." The mention of Logan's father made Maya's chest tight. Logan rarely talked about his dad, but when he did, it was always with a mixture of love and loss that made Maya wish she could reach through the phone and hold him. "Tell me about your day," she said, settling deeper into the unfamiliar bed. "And don't leave anything out. I want to hear about the boring parts too." So Logan told her about his morning coffee, still terrible but familiar, his client meeting, successful but exhausting, and his lunch with his sister Rebecca, who had asked about Maya 17 times. He told her about the construction happening outside his office window, and the homeless man who'd started a conversation with him on the subway, and the way the evening light had looked different somehow, like even Manhattan knew something had changed. Maya listened to every word, closing her eyes and pretending she was back in her old apartment, sprawled across the couch while Logan made dinner in her tiny kitchen. The illusion was almost perfect until a siren wailed outside her window, a California siren that sounded different from New York sirens, sharper and more urgent. "Maya, you still there? Sorry, I'm here. Just got distracted by the fact that even the sirens sound different here. Everything's going to sound different for a while. But eventually, California sirens will start sounding normal, and New York sirens will sound like home. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be realistic." Maya appreciated Logan's honesty, even when it made her homesick for a place she'd left 6 hours ago. "Logan? Yeah? This is going to be harder than we thought, isn't it?" Logan was quiet for a moment, and Maya could picture him running his hand through his hair, the way he did when he was thinking. "Probably," he said finally. "But Maya, we've never done anything the easy way. Why start now? Because maybe easy would be nice for once? Maybe, but you've never been someone who chose easy over meaningful." Maya felt tears threaten again, but they were different from the tears she'd cried in the taxi. These felt less like grief and more like recognition. "I chose you," she said quietly, "and I chose you. Distance doesn't change that." "Promise me something?" "What?" "Promise me that if this gets too hard, if the distance starts to matter more than what we have, you'll tell me. Don't just fade away or start making excuses. Be honest with me. I promise, but Maya, yeah? You have to promise me the same thing." Don't convince yourself I'm better off without you if things get difficult. Talk to me instead. Maya smiled, feeling something settle in her chest. I promise. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything until Maya's exhaustion finally caught up with her. When they said goodbye, it felt less like an ending and more like a pause, a comma in a conversation they'd continue tomorrow. As Maya got ready for bed in her temporary California home, she realized that love wasn't about being in the same place at the same time. Love was about choosing each other across any distance, in any time zone, through any uncertainty. And for the first time since she'd gotten on the plane that morning, Maya felt like she and Logan might actually know how to do that. 3 months into the Stanford program, Maya discovered that success could be lonelier than failure had ever been. She was sitting in Dr. Martinez's office on a Thursday afternoon in November, staring at the research proposal that had just earned her the highest praise she'd ever received in academia. The paper explored innovative approaches to treating childhood attachment trauma, drawing from her own experiences in ways that felt both therapeutic and terrifying. "This is exceptional work, Maya," Dr. Martinez said, leaning back in her chair with the kind of smile that usually made Maya's week. "I'd like to submit this for publication in the Journal of Clinical Psychology. With your permission, of course." Maya nodded, trying to summon the excitement she knew she should be feeling. Publication in a major journal during her first year of doctoral studies was unprecedented. It was the kind of achievement that would fast-track her career and validate every sacrifice she'd made to be here. So why did she feel so empty? "Thank you, Dr. Martinez. I'm honored." "Maya, can I ask you something?" Dr. Martinez's tone shifted from professional to concerned. "You've been producing incredible work, but you seem distant lately. Is everything all right?" Maya forced a smile. "Just adjusting to the workload." It wasn't entirely a lie. The coursework at Stanford was demanding in ways she hadn't expected. But the real challenge wasn't academic, it was the growing silence where Logan's voice used to be. Their daily phone calls had gradually decreased to every other day, then twice a week, then whenever their schedules aligned, which was increasingly rare. The 3-hour time difference meant Maya was often in class when Logan finished work, and by the time she was free, he was already asleep. Their text conversations had devolved from paragraphs to sentences to the occasional emoji. Maya left Dr. Martinez's office and walked across campus to her favorite study spot, a bench near the lake where she could watch other students living the kind of carefree college life she'd never experienced. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her recent messages with Logan, her last text, "Big presentation today. Wish me luck." His response, 6 hours later, "You'll do great. Sorry, crazy day." Her reply, "How did the Henderson project go?" Radio silence for 2 days. Maya started typing several messages and deleted them all. "I miss you" felt too needy. "Are we okay?" felt too confrontational. "I got accepted for publication" felt like bragging when he hadn't asked about her work in weeks. Instead, she put her phone away and tried to focus on the homework assignment due tomorrow. But her mind kept drifting to a Tuesday morning 8 months ago when Logan had looked at her across a coffee shop table and made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she was worth staying for. Her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number, and Maya almost didn't answer. When she did, a familiar voice made her heart leap. "Maya, it's Jessica, your old roommate. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I got your number from the emergency contact form you left with the landlord." Maya sat up straighter. Jessica never called unless something was wrong. "Is everything okay? It's Logan." The words hit Maya like ice water. "What about Logan? Is he hurt? He's..." "Maya, I think you need to know that he's been having a really hard time since you left. Sarah mentioned seeing him at some networking event last week, and she said he looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept in days." Maya's grip tightened on the phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean I think he's struggling more than he's letting on." You know how guys are. They pretend everything's fine until they're falling apart. Maya felt panic rising in her throat. Did something specific happen? I don't think so. I think he's just lonely, Maya, really lonely. And maybe too proud to tell you how much he's struggling with the distance. Maya closed her eyes, feeling like the world was tilting sideways. I should call him. Maybe you should, but Maya? Be prepared for the possibility that he might not. Answer. Sarah said he's been avoiding social events and basically becoming a hermit. After Jessica hung up, Maya sat on the bench staring at Logan's contact information for 20 minutes. Their last conversation had been stilted and brief, full of the kind of polite updates you'd give to an acquaintance. When had they stopped being honest with each other? She pressed the call before she could lose her nerve. The phone rang 4 times before Logan picked up. Hey, Maya. His voice sounded tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. Maya felt her heart break a little. Hi, how are you? Fine, you? Maya wanted to scream. When had they become people who asked, how are you, like strangers making small talk? Logan, I just got a call from Jessica. Silence. She said you've been having a hard time. Jessica needs to mind her own business. The sharpness in Logan's voice was so unlike him that Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Are you okay? And please don't say fine. Logan was quiet for so long that Maya wondered if the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. No, Maya, I'm not okay. I'm fucking miserable, and I hate myself for being miserable because I know this is what you need to do, and I want to support you. But I can't figure out how to do that when talking to you for 5 minutes twice a week is making everything worse instead of better. The honesty in his voice was like a punch to the gut. Maya had been so focused on her own loneliness that she hadn't considered that Logan might be drowning too. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered, because what was I supposed to say? That I'm jealous of your success? That I resent the fact that you're building this amazing new life while I'm still in the same apartment, going to the same job, living the same routine, except now there's a Maya-shaped hole in the middle of it. Maya felt tears spill over. Logan, I'm sorry, I'm being an ass. This isn't your fault, and I don't want you to feel guilty for choosing something that's making you happy. Who says I'm happy? The question seemed to catch Logan off guard. Aren't you? You're doing incredible work. You're exactly where you wanted to be. I'm professionally successful and personally miserable, Maya interrupted. I spend every day surrounded by people who share my interests and every night alone wondering why achievement feels so hollow when I don't have anyone to share it with. Maya ... I miss you, Logan, not just romantically but as my person. You used to be the first person I wanted to tell when something good happened. Now I get good news, and I don't even know if you want to hear it. Logan was quiet again, and Maya could hear the sound of traffic in the background. Where are you right now? Walking home from work. I've been taking the long way lately, because I don't want to get to my empty apartment. Maya closed her eyes, picturing Logan wandering the streets of Manhattan to avoid the silence of home. I got accepted for publication today. In a major journal. Maya, that's incredible. That's exactly what you. Logan's voice broke slightly. I'm so proud of you. Are you? Of course I am. I've always been proud of you. Then why does it feel like we're strangers? Logan stopped walking, and the background noise disappeared. Because I don't know how to love you from this distance without it destroying me. And I don't know how to stop loving you. So I'm stuck in this terrible middle ground where I care about you too much to let go and too much to hold on properly. Maya felt something crack open in her chest. What if we're doing this wrong? What do you mean? I mean, what if trying to maintain our old relationship long distance is impossible, and we need to figure out what this version of us looks like instead? I don't understand. Maya took a deep breath, trying to articulate something she'd been thinking about for weeks. We've been trying to have the same relationship we had in New York, just with phone calls and texts instead of coffee dates and dinners. But maybe we need to accept that long-distance Maya and Logan are different people than the same city Maya and Logan were. Different how? I don't know yet. But maybe instead of trying to maintain what we used to have, we need to build something new. Something that works for who we are now in these circumstances. Logan was quiet for a long time. What would that look like? Maybe it looks like being honest about how hard this is instead of pretending we're fine. Maybe it looks like accepting that there will be gaps in communication that don't mean anything except that we're busy. Maybe it looks like finding new ways to be present in each other's lives. Maya, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either. But Logan, I think we're already losing each other by trying to hold on to something that doesn't fit our lives anymore. Maya heard Logan sit down, probably on a park bench or stoop, the way he did when conversations got serious. So what do we do? He asked finally. We start over. Not our relationship, but our expectations for how this relationship works. How? Maya smiled through her tears, feeling more hopeful than she had in weeks. We stop trying to talk every day. If every day doesn't work, we send each other pictures of random things that make us think of the other person. We plan visits that we actually look forward to instead of treating them like obligations. We remember that loving each other doesn't mean we have to be available to each other every second. That sounds scary. Everything about us has been scary from the beginning. Why stop now? Logan laughed, and the sound was so warm and familiar that Maya felt something loosen in her chest. Okay, let's start over. Hi, I'm Maya Chun, and I'm a doctoral student at Stanford who's still figuring out how to be in love with someone 3,000 miles away. Hi Maya, I'm Logan Mitchell, and I'm a business consultant in New York who's learning that missing someone doesn't have to mean resenting them. Nice to meet you, Logan. Would you like to try being long-distance partners instead of trying to be the same people we were when we lived in the same city? I'd like that very much. As they talked for the next hour, really talked with the kind of honesty they'd been avoiding for months, Maya realized that love wasn't about maintaining the same relationship under different circumstances. Love was about evolving together, even when evolution meant accepting that some things would have to change. And for the first time since she'd arrived in California, Maya felt like she and Logan might actually know how to do that. 4 years later, Maya stood in the same coffee shop where it all began, wearing a doctoral graduation cap and holding 2 cups of terrible coffee. Logan was 15 minutes late, which should have triggered every abandonment fear she'd ever carried, but instead, she found herself smiling. Some things never changed. The Cornerstone Cafe looked exactly the same, down to the mismatched chairs and the suspicious stain on table 12. Maya had chosen table 14 deliberately, their old spot, though she wasn't sure if Logan would remember the significance. 4 years of long distance had taught them both that some memories were worth preserving and others were better left to evolve. Sorry. Logan's voice came from behind her, slightly breathless. My flight was delayed, and then the taxi got stuck in construction traffic. And Maya turned around, and the rest of his explanation died on his lips. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. 4 years of video calls and airport visits hadn't quite prepared Maya for the reality of Logan in 3 dimensions again, tangible and present and real. He looked older, more settled somehow. There were new lines around his eyes, but they were the kind that came from smiling rather than stress. His hair was shorter than she remembered, and he was wearing a suit that actually fit him properly, a far cry from the rumpled business casual of their coffee shop days. Dr. Chun, he said finally, his voice soft with something that might have been pride or wonder or simple recognition. Mr. Mitchell, she replied, though she couldn't quite keep the smile out of her voice. They hugged, and it was both familiar and strange. Logan still smelled like the same cologne, still held her like she was something precious. But Maya could feel the years between them, not as distance, but as growth. "You look incredible," Logan said as they sat down, and Maya felt heat creep up her neck. "You clean up pretty well yourself. Is that a new suit, new job, new wardrobe?" "I finally took that position with the consulting firm in Boston. Remember how I used to talk about wanting to do more meaningful work?" Maya nodded, remembering late-night phone calls during her second year when Logan had been questioning everything about his career path. "I'm working with nonprofits now, helping them develop sustainable business models. It turns out there's something incredibly satisfying about fixing things that actually matter." "Boston," Maya repeated, testing the word. "How do you like it?" "I love it. It's close enough to New York that I can visit Rebecca whenever I want, but far enough away that I had to build a completely new life. Turns out I was pretty good at that." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of the loneliness that had marked their phone calls during the difficult periods. But Logan looked genuinely content in a way she'd rarely seen before. "What about you?" Logan asked. "How does it feel to be Dr. Maya Chun? Surreal. I keep expecting someone to realize they made a mistake and ask for the degree back. That's not going to happen. I know, logically I know that. But imposter syndrome is apparently a PhD requirement they don't tell you about in the brochure." Logan laughed, and the sound was warm and familiar. "What's next? Are you staying at Stanford for your postdoc?" Maya took a deep breath. This was the conversation she'd been both anticipating and dreading for months. "Actually, I got an offer from Columbia. Dr. Williams wants me to join his research team, and there's a clinical fellowship attached that would let me start seeing patients." "Columbia." "As in Columbia University in New York. That's the one." Logan went very still, and Maya could practically see him processing the implications. "When would you start?" "September. I'd be moving back to New York in August." "Maya." Logan's voice trailed off, and she could see him struggling with how to respond. They'd been so careful over the past 4 years not to make assumptions about their future, not to put pressure on each other's decisions. But this felt too significant to treat as just another career move. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said, her heart pounding so hard she was sure Logan could hear it. "Anything. When you picture your life 5 years from now, what do you see?" Logan was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee cup the way he used to when they were figuring out how to be honest with each other. "I see a house with good light for reading and a kitchen big enough for 2 people to cook in without bumping into each other. I see Sunday mornings that don't feel lonely and someone to call when something good happens at work." He looked up at Maya, and his expression was vulnerable in a way that made her chest ache. "I see you if you want to be seen." Maya felt tears. Threatened, but they were the good kind, the kind that came with relief and recognition, and the stunning realization that some things were worth waiting 4 years for. "Logan, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I didn't take the Columbia offer because it was the best opportunity available. I took it because I spent 4 years learning how to be independent and successful and whole on my own. And now I want to learn how to be all of those things with you." Logan's smile started slowly and then spread across his entire face. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that I love you. Not because I need you or because I'm afraid to be alone, but because I choose you. Every day. For 4 years, even when it was hard, even when we didn't know if it would work out, I chose you." "Maya, I'm not finished." Maya took another deep breath, feeling braver than she'd felt since that night at the poetry reading. "I'm saying that I spent 27 years believing I didn't deserve love, and then you showed me that deserving was never the point. The point was deciding to love and be loved anyway." Logan reached across the table and took her hands, the gesture so familiar that Maya felt like she was coming home. "I have something to ask you," he said, and his voice was shaking slightly. "Logan, if you're about to, Maya Chun, will you marry me?" The question hung in the air between them, and Maya felt the entire coffee shop fade away until there was nothing but Logan's face and the impossible reality of this moment. "You don't have a ring," she said stupidly. Logan laughed, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. "I've been carrying this around for 6 months, waiting for the right moment." Turns out the right moment was always going to be here, in this terrible coffee shop where we first met. Maya stared at the ring, a simple solitaire that caught the light from the window and threw tiny rainbows across the table. It was perfect in its understated elegance, exactly what she would have chosen if she'd been brave enough to imagine this moment. "Logan, before you answer," Logan interrupted, "I need you to know that I'm not asking you to marry me because you're moving back to New York. I'm asking because I spent 4 years learning how to love you from a distance, and now I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to love you up close." Maya felt tears spill over, but she was smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Yes, Logan Mitchell, I will marry you." Logan slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that were shaking almost as much as hers, and Maya marveled at how something so small could feel so monumental. The ring fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her finger as long as she'd been waiting for this moment. "Can I tell you something?" Maya said, admiring the way the diamond looked on her hand. "Anything." 4 years ago, when I left for Stanford, I was terrified that choosing my career meant losing you. Now I realize that choosing my career was what made me brave enough to choose you too. "What do you mean?" Maya looked around the coffee shop, remembering the first time she'd sat at this table, surrounded by psychology textbooks, and convinced that she was too broken for love. "I mean, I spent my whole life believing that I had to choose between being loved and being independent. But you taught me that the right person doesn't ask you to choose. The right person wants you to have everything you want, even if it's complicated." Logan brought her hand to his lips and kissed her ring finger, right above the engagement ring. "Maya Chun, you are going to be the most incredible wife. How can you be so sure?" "Because you're already the most incredible everything else." Maya laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "That's not how logic works. Since when is love logical?" "Good point." They sat there for another hour, making plans and talking about the future in a way they'd never allowed themselves to do before. Logan told her about the apartment he'd been looking at in Boston that had a perfect home office for Maya's research work. Maya told him about the wedding she'd never let herself imagine, but had been unconsciously planning for months. As they finally got up to leave, Maya realized that this ending was really a beginning. Not just of their engagement or their marriage, but of the next chapter of two people who had learned that love wasn't about deserving or earning or being worthy enough. Love was about choosing each other again and again through every season of becoming who they were meant to be. "One more thing," Logan said as they walked toward the door. "What's that? I still think the coffee here is terrible." Maya burst out laughing. "Good thing we're not coming here for the coffee. What are we coming here for?" Maya looked back at table 14, where two scared, lonely people had once discovered that maybe they weren't as broken as they thought. "We're coming here to remember that the best things in life happen when you're brave enough to stay." Logan squeezed her hand, and they walked out into the New York sunshine together, ready to build a life that was worth every risk they'd taken to find each other. 4 years earlier, Maya had whispered, "I don't deserve love," like a prayer to a God who wasn't listening. Logan had replied, "Lucky me. I don't deserve you either," like an answer to a question she'd been too afraid to ask. Now they knew the truth. Deserving had never been the point. The point was loving anyway, choosing anyway, staying anyway, even when it was scary, even when it was hard, even when you didn't know how the story would end. And their story was just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.